In the shadows of ancient empires, from the suffocating boats of Persia to the fiery coals of Celtic forests, punishments were not just penalties, but spectacles of power, faith, and fear. Journey through 15 chilling tales of justice where bodies were broken, shamed, or bound to appease gods and kings, revealing the haunting resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable torment. Which of these ancient cruelties will linger in your mind tonight? Story 1. The Boat of Torment. Scaphism. In ancient Persia, imagine yourself drifting on the sun-baked waters of the Euphrates River, the air thick with the hum of insects and the distant calls of waterfowl. It's the height of the Achaemenid Empire, around 500 BCE, and you've been accused of a grave offense, perhaps treason against the great king, or simply falling afoul of a powerful satrap's whims. In this vast realm, stretching from the Indus to the Nile, justice isn't swift or merciful. It's a prolonged spectacle designed to deter and degrade. You, the listener, are about to step into the sandals of those who faced scaphism, a punishment so methodically cruel that it blended the elements of nature with human ingenuity, turning the body's own vulnerabilities into a canvas for suffering. Derived from the Greek word scaph, meaning boat or hollow vessel, was chronicled by ancient historians like Plutarch and Caesar, who served as physicians at the Persian court. These accounts, though sometimes embellished for Greek audiences eager to portray the East as barbaric, align with archaeological hints and later Persian legal texts. The process began not in haste, but with deliberate preparation, emphasizing the empire's bureaucratic precision. Convicts were often high-profile offenders, spies, rebels, or disloyal nobles whose fates served as warnings in a society where loyalty to the king was paramount. The punishment's roots likely trace back to earlier Mesopotamian traditions, where exposure to the elements was a common theme in codes like Hammurabi's, but the Persians refined it into something uniquely torturous. First, you'd be stripped bare, your skin exposed to the relentless Mesopotamian sun, which could scorch flesh in hours. Guards, clad in linen tunics and armed with spears, would escort you to a remote marsh or riverbank, away from the bustling cities like Persepolis or Susa. There, to narrow boats, hollowed-out wooden vessels, perhaps made from cedar, imported from Lebanon, were prepared. These weren't grand warships like those in the Persian navy. They were simple, functional crafts, about the length of a man lying down, with shallow holes to trap heat and moisture. You'd be forced into one boat, your limbs arranged so that your head, hands, and feet protruded from holes drilled at the ends and sides. The second boat would then be clamped over you like a lid, sealing your torso in a dark, confined space. Resin or pitch, harvested from the Zagros Mountains, was smeared along the seams to make the enclosure airtight, preventing escape and ensuring the interior became a humid tomb. But the true horror unfolded slowly, in the mundane details of sustenance and exposure. To prolong your agony, the executioners fed you a mixture of milk and honey, staples of the Persian diet, symbolizing abundance turned perverse. Poured into your mouth daily, this concoction sustained life just enough to extend suffering. Excess would drip down your face and body, attracting swarms of insects from the surrounding wetlands. Flies, mosquitoes, and beetles, common in the Fertile Crescent's ecosystems, would descend, drawn by the sweetness. Inside the boat, the confined space trapped your waste, fostering rot and infection. The heat, amplified by the wooden enclosure, accelerated decomposition while you still breathe. Historical records suggest this could last days or even weeks, depending on the victim's resilience and the environment's harshness. Consider the cultural backdrop. In Zoroastrian-influenced Persia, where purity and pollution were central tenets, scaphism inverted sacred elements. Water, a purifying force, became a vector for decay. Honey, a gift from the gods, lured destruction. This wasn't mere sadism. It reflected a legal system where punishments mirrored crimes. Betrayers were betrayed by their own bodies. Yet, as the insects burrowed and the fever rose, one might wonder, how did survivors, if any, recount their ordeals? And what secrets of endurance did they carry into the empire's annals? Picture yourself now, trapped within the suffocating confines of those twin boats, the sun climbing higher over the Persian marshes as you, the listener, endure the second phase of scaphism. The air is heavy with the stench of decay and the incessant buzzing of insects, each day blurring into the next under the Achaemenid Empire's unyielding justice system. Around 500 BCE, your body, still alive through the grim ritual of milk and honey, is a battleground where nature and human cruelty conspire. The punishment's design, rooted in the bureaucratic precision of an empire spanning 3 continents, ensures that suffering is not a singular event but a prolonged descent, each moment meticulously orchestrated to maximize dread and deter others. The boats, lashed together with hemp ropes, creak under the weight of your predicament. The wood, likely sourced from the cedar groves of the Levant, absorbs the sun's heat, turning your enclosure into an oven. Sweat mixes with the sticky residue of honey, creating a slick film that draws ever more insect ants crawling over your exposed limbs, flies nesting in the crevices of your skin. Historical accounts, like those of Ctesias, note that executioners would occasionally unseal the boats to check your condition, not out of mercy, but to ensure the punishment's duration. These men, often low-ranking soldiers or slaves tasked with the grim duty, worked under the watchful eyes of a satrap's overseer. Their indifference was procedural. In a society where loyalty to the king was absolute, your suffering was merely paperwork. The cultural context deepens the horror. In Zoroastrian cosmology, the body was a sacred vessel, yet scaphism defiled it, turning purity into pollution. The milk and honey, symbols of divine bounty, were weaponized to sustain you just long enough for nature to do its work. This wasn't random cruelty, but a calculated inversion of Persian values. Legal texts from the period, inscribed on clay tablets, suggest that such punishments were reserved for crimes threatening the empire's stability: treason, rebellion, or sacrilege against Ahura Mazda's order. The slow death mirrored the slow unraveling of trust in a traitor's heart, a poetic justice in the eyes of the court. Meanwhile, your screams, if you could still muster them, would echo across the marshes, unheard by the bustling markets of Babylon or the opulent halls of Persepolis. Yet, survival strategies emerged even in this nightmare. Some victims, as hinted in fragmented accounts, might have attempted mental dissociation, focusing on memories of family or the rhythmic lapping of water against the boat to endure the pain. Others, perhaps, whispered prayers to gods or ancestors, seeking spiritual escape where physical freedom was impossible. The human body, remarkably resilient, could cling to life for days, even weeks, as the insects burrowed and infections spread. The executioner's daily feedings ensured you didn't starve, but dehydration and fever would weaken even the strongest. The psychological toll was equally brutal, trapped in darkness. Your only companions, the insects, and your own thoughts. You might wonder if death was a mercy withheld. This raises a haunting question. How did the architects of scaphism balance their faith in purity with such grotesque punishment? And what did its victims learn about the limits of human endurance in their final, agonizing moments? You, the listener, are now in the final throes of adrift in the Persian marshes under the unrelenting sun of 500 BCE, the boats that encase you groan with the weight of your suffering, the air thick with the rancid stench of decay and the ceaseless drone of insects. Your body, sustained by the cruel irony of milk and honey, clings to life, though fever and infection have long since blurred the line between consciousness and delirium. In the Achaemenid Empire's vast legal machinery, your fate is a footnote, a warning etched into the collective memory of a society built on order and obedience. Yet, in these final moments, the story of scaphism reveals not just cruelty, but the resilience of the human spirit and the strange legacy of such punishments. The end, when it comes, is not dramatic but gradual. Historical accounts, like those of Plutarch, suggest that death arrived through a combination of septic shock, dehydration, or organ failure, hastened by the relentless assault of insects and exposure. The boats, now a festering coffin, would be left to float until the executioners confirmed your passing, their task complete when no breath remained. Afterward, the vessels were likely abandoned or reused, the wood stained with the grim residue of their purpose. In rare cases, bodies were displayed, perhaps towed to a nearby settlement as a deterrent, though Zoroastrian reverence for the elements often discouraged such desecration. The marshes, teeming with life, reclaimed what remained, leaving no trace of your ordeal save for whispered tales among the satrapy's enforcers. But who were you, the victim? Perhaps a rebel who dared defy the great king, or a noble caught in the intricate web of court intrigue. The anonymity of most victims speaks to the punishment's broader purpose, to erase the individual while amplifying the empire's power. Yet, in this erasure, there's a paradox. Scaphism's infamy, preserved in Greek texts and later Persian chronicles, ensured that these stories outlived their perpetrators. The meticulous records of the Achaemenid bureaucracy clay tablets listing crimes and punishments hint at a system obsessed with documenting control, yet it's the human cost that resonates. Some victims, according to fragmented accounts, were said to have endured up to 2 weeks, their minds clinging to fleeting memories of home or loved ones, a testament to an almost incomprehensible will to survive. The legacy of scaphism stretches beyond its time. It informed later punitive practices, from Roman crucifixions to medieval tortures, where public suffering reinforced authority. In modern times, its echoes linger in how we grapple with justice and cruelty. The deliberate slowness of scaphism, designed to prolong agony, raises questions about the ethics of punishment and the human capacity for inflicting pain under the guise of order. It also underscores resilience, those fleeting moments of mental defiance, where a victim might have found solace in a prayer or a memory. Remind us of the strength woven into even the most hopeless situations. As you reflect on this ancient practice, consider how it shaped perceptions of justice then and now. What does it reveal about the balance between power and humanity? And how do we, today, judge the punishments of the past without confronting our own? Story to the sack of beasts, Pona Calais in ancient Rome's Tep into the bustling streets of Rome around 200 BC, where the Tiber River glints under the Mediterranean sun and the Forum hums with merchants, senators, and plebeians. You, the listener, have just been convicted of a crime so heinous it shocks even this hardened city, parricide, the murder of a parent. In the Roman Republic, where family and piety are the bedrock of society, such an act demands a punishment as symbolic as it is brutal. You're about to face Pona Calais, the punishment of the sack, a ritual so steeped in superstition and spectacle that it reveals the Romans' complex dance between law, religion, and raw vengeance. Pona Calais was reserved for those who violated the sacred bond of familia. Roman law, as recorded in texts like the 12 Tables, placed immense value on paternal authority, or patria. To kill a parent was to unravel the social order, an offense against both gods and men. The earliest mentions of this punishment appear in legal fragments and later accounts by historians like Cicero and Livy, though details vary, suggesting a practice that evolved over centuries. By the Republic's height, Pona Calais had become a rare but unforgettable public ritual, designed to cleanse the city of moral pollution and deter future transgressors. Your journey begins in a dank cell beneath the Tullianum, Rome's grim prison near the Capitoline Hill. The air smells of mildew and despair. The stone walls, slick with Tiber's damp. Guards, clad in coarse tunics, drag you to the Forum, where a crowd gathers not out of bloodlust, but curiosity and fear of divine wrath. The punishment's components are as methodical as they are bizarre. First, your head is shrouded in a wolfskin hood, a nod to the animal's outcast status in Roman lore, marking you as neither fully human nor beast. Your feet are bound in wooden clogs, heavy and awkward, crafted from cheap pine to symbolize your severance from society's stability. These details, mundane yet deliberate, reflect Rome's obsession with ritual precision. Next comes the sack itself, coarse, hemp-woven coolius, stitched with thick thread and smeared with pitch to ensure it's watertight. But you're not alone in this suffocating prison. The Romans, believing parricide offended nature itself, include animals in the sack to amplify your punishment. A dog, perhaps a stray from Rome's streets, is chosen for its loyalty, now betrayed by your crime. A rooster, sacred to Mars, crows in panic, its claws scratching the sack's interior. A viper, slithering from the Apennine hills, embodies treachery, while a monkey rare and costly, imported from North Africa dads, a grotesque mockery of your humanity. These creatures, thrashing against you in the dark, are not random. They're symbols of the natural order you've disrupted. As the sack is sealed, the crowd's murmurs grow distant. You're carried toward the Tiber, the river that nurtured Rome's founding, now your executioner. The question lingers as the cart rumbles forward. Why did the Romans choose such an elaborate ritual? And what did it reveal about their fears of familial betrayal? You're now bound within the coolius, the coarse sack pressing against your skin as you, the listener, feel the weight of Rome's judgment in 200 BCE, the wolfskin who blinds you, its musky stench mingling with the panicked breaths of the animals trapped alongside you, a dog's whimpers, a rooster's frantic flapping, a viper's hiss, and a monkey's erratic screeches. The Tiber's current laps nearby, its rhythm a grim countdown. This is Pona Calais, a punishment that blends Rome's legal rigor with its deep-seated superstitions, transforming a simple execution into a public exorcism of moral rot. The crowd gathered along the riverbank watches not with glee but with a solemn dread, as if your crime parasite might taint the city's soul. The procession to the Tiber is deliberate, a spectacle choreographed to restore order. The cart carrying you jostles over cobblestones, driven by executioners whose faces are hidden behind ceremonial masks, a nod to the religious weight of the act. Roman religion, intertwined with law, demanded that parricide be purged through rituals that appeased the gods. The animals in the sack, as described in sources like the Digest of Justinian, were no afterthought. The dog, loyal to its master, mirrored the filial duty you betrayed. The rooster, tied to Mars and the dawn, symbolized the life you extinguished. The viper, a creature of stealth and venom, reflected your treachery, while the monkey, exotic and human-like, mocked your fall from civilization. Each was a piece of Rome's moral cosmology, woven into a punishment that spoke to both the forums, senators, and the gods above. Inside the sack, survival is a fleeting instinct. The animals, as terrified as you, claw and bite in the suffocating dark. The viper's fangs might graze your skin, its venom a quicker death than the Tiber promises. The dog, pressed against you, grows frantic, its loyalty irrelevant in this chaos. Your clogs, heavy with pine, restrict movement, ensuring you can't fight back. Yet, in this moment, the human mind seeks escape. Some, as hinted in Roman legal anecdotes, might have whispered prayers to Jupiter or their household lares, clinging to the hope of divine mercy. Others, overwhelmed by the sensory assault, might have retreated into memories of a mother's lullaby or a father's stern voice, now tainted by the act that led you here. The Tiber looms closer, its muddy waters fed by the hills of central Italy. The crowd's silence underscores the ritual's gravity. This is no gladiatorial spectacle, but a communal cleansing. The executioners, guided by a magistrate's nod, prepare to cast the sack into the river's depths. The pitch-sealed coolius ensures it will sink, entombing you and the animals in a watery grave. But as the cart halts and the river's chill beckons, a question hangs in the air. How did this ritual reflect Rome's obsession with family? And what did it mean for a society that drowned its betrayers in such a theatrical display? You're now sinking into the Tiber's murky depths. The coolius, dragging you down as Rome's justice, circa 200 BCE, claims its due. The sack, sealed with pitch, traps you with the frantic animals, dog, rooster, viper, and monkey whose struggles mirror your own. The wolfskin hood chokes your senses, the clogs weigh like anchors, and the river's cold embrace seeps through the hemp. This is the climax of Pona Calais, a punishment that fuses Rome's reverence for family with its fear of divine retribution. You, the listener, convicted of parricide, are no longer a person, but a symbol of betrayal, erased to preserve the Republic's moral order. The Tiber, Rome's lifeblood, becomes your tomb. Its currents, fed by seasonal rains, swirl around the sack, pulling it deeper. Death comes not from a single blow, but from a slow suffocation. The air within the coulee is dwindling as water presses in. The animals, as described in Roman legal texts, add to the chaos: the viper's thrashing, the rooster's desperate claws, the dog's whimpers, and the monkey's screams, creating a nightmare of motion. Historical records, like those in Cicero's speeches, suggest some victims drowned quickly, within minutes, while others lingered, their fate prolonged by air pockets or sheer will. The river, indifferent, carried the sack downstream, its contents dissolving into the silt of Rome's sacred waterway. The crowd on the bank disperses, their duty to witness fulfilled. To them, Pona Calais was more than punishment. It was a ritual to appease the gods and restore Pax Deorum, the peace with the divine. The animals, each a symbol of violated natural order, ensured the crime's stain was cleansed. Yet the anonymity of most victims, often recorded only as a certain man in legal annals, highlights the punishment's true aim: to erase the individual while reinforcing collective values. The rare cases, like that of Publicius Malleolus in 101 BC, show Pona Calais applied to patricians and plebeians alike, a stark reminder that no one was above Rome's familial code. The legacy of Pona Calais ripples through history. By the imperial era, it faded, replaced by simpler executions like crucifixion. But its theatricality influenced later European punishments, from medieval drownings to public spectacles. It reveals Rome's paradox, a society of law and progress, yet gripped by primal fears of betrayal. The resilience of those who faced the sack, clinging to breath, to memory, to fleeting hopes, speaks to an enduring human spirit, even in the face of orchestrated horror. Today, Pona Calais challenges us to reflect on justice's evolution. How do we balance retribution with humanity? And what do our punishments reveal about our own values? The Tiber still flows, carrying the weight of Rome's past, whispering lessons about the cost of breaking sacred bonds. Story 3: The Bronze Roaster, the brazen bull of ancient Greece. Picture yourself in the shadow of Mount Etna, Sicily, around 550 BCE, where the Greek colony of Acragos thrives under the iron rule of Phalaris, a tyrant whose name echoes through history. You, the listener, have been accused of plotting against his regime, perhaps whispering dissent in the agora, or merely catching the wrong person's eye. In this sun-drenched corner of the Greek world, justice is not a trial, but a spectacle. And Phalaris's favored tool is the brazen bulla device, so ingeniously cruel it blends art, engineering, and terror. As you stand before this gleaming bronze beast, its hollow belly awaiting you, you're about to experience a punishment that will sear itself into the annals of history. The brazen bull, attributed to the craftsman Paralaus, was a life-sized bronze statue of a bull, a symbol of strength and fertility in Greek culture, twisted into an instrument of death. Ancient sources like Diodorus, Siculus, and Cicero describe it as a marvel of craftsmanship, hollow, with a trapdoor in its side, and pipes running from its mouth to amplify sound. Phalaris, a historical figure whose tyranny over Acragos is documented in fragmentary records, reportedly commissioned it to deter rebellion and cement his power. The bull stood in a public square, its polished surface reflecting the Mediterranean sun, a stark contrast to the grim fate it promised. Its creation reflects the Greek fascination with blending beauty and utility. Even in punishment, your ordeal begins with a procession through Acragos's dusty streets. Lined with olive trees and whitewashed temples, citizens gather, their faces a mix of fear and fascination, drawn to the tyrant's display of control. You're stripped of your kitten, your wrists bound with coarse rope, and led to the bull. The trapdoor creaks open, revealing a dark, metallic interior, still warm from the Sicilian heat. Guards, loyal to Phalaris, force you inside, your body contorted to fit the cramped space. The door seals with a heavy thud, leaving you in darkness. The bronze walls cool against your skin for now. Below the bull, kindling is prepared. Dry olive branches, gathered from nearby groves, and pitch to ensure a steady flame. The fire hasn't yet been lit, but the anticipation is its own torment. The bull's design is precise. As the fire would be kindled, the bronze would heat slowly, transforming the statue into an oven. The pipes in its mouth, crafted with acoustic precision, were meant to convert screams into eerie bellows, mimicking the bull's rara macabra performance for the crowd. This wasn't just punishment, it was theater, reinforcing Phalaris's godlike authority. Yet the bull's rarity, used sparingly, according to historical accounts, made each execution a communal event, etching fear into Acragos's collective psyche. As you wait in the suffocating dark, the question looms: what drove Phalaris to devise such a punishment, and how did its victims endure the moments before the flames? You're now sealed inside the brazen bull, the bronze walls pressing against you in the heart of Acragos. Circa 550 BCE, the air inside is stifling, thick with the metallic tang of your prison. Outside, the crowd's murmurs blend with the crackle of kindling as Phalaris's executioners prepare the fire. You, the listener, accused of defying the tyrant. The brazen bull, a grotesque fusion of Greek artistry and cruelty, is not just a tool of death, but a symbol of Phalaris's absolute power. Designed to terrify and subdue an entire city, the fire begins slowly. As olive branches and pitch ignite beneath the bull's belly, the bronze, a conductor of heat, warms gradually, its surface shifting from cool to scalding. Your skin prickles, then burns as the temperature rises. The bull's interior, crafted with precision by parallels, traps heat like a kill, ensuring no escape from the agony. The pipes in the bull's mouth, described in ancient texts like those of Pindar's scholiasts, transform your cries into haunting bellows, a sound that chills the crowd. To them, it's as if the bull itself roars a divine judgment on your crime. This acoustic trick, rooted in Greek engineering, amplifies the spectacle, making your suffering a public performance. In this moment, survival is a desperate act of will. The body, as medical knowledge of the time understood it, could withstand intense pain briefly, but the bull's slow heating prolonged the torment. Some victims, as hinted in later Greek anecdotes, might have focused on rhythmic breathing or mental escape imagining. The cool waters of the Hypsis River or the shade of an olive grove to delay panic. Others, perhaps, invoked Apollo, god of prophecy, seeking meaning in their suffering. The crowd outside, a mix of farmers, artisans, and elites, watches in silence, bound by fear of Phalaris's wrath and the god's disapproval. The tyrant himself, if present, would stand apart, his authority reinforced by this display of control over life and death. The cultural context deepens the horror. The bull, sacred to Zeus and Poseidon, was a potent symbol in Greek religion, yet Phalaris subverted it into a tool of terror. This reflected a broader tension in Greek colonies like Acragas, where tyrants balanced piety with power. Legal records from the period, though sparse, suggest the bull was used sparingly, reserved for high-profile traders or rebels, its rarity amplifying its dread. The executioners, likely slaves or low-ranking soldiers, worked methodically, tending the fire with the same care as a potter at his kiln. As the heat intensifies and your strength fades, and what did its victims carry in their final thoughts? You're now engulfed in the brazen bull's searing embrace, the bronze glowing red-hot as the flames beneath roar in a 550 BCE. The air inside is a furnace, scorching your lungs with each labored breath. You, the listener, condemned for defying Phalaris, are at the heart of a punishment that blends Greek ingenuity with primal cruelty. The bull's pipes turn your screams into a bellowing dirge, echoing across the agora, where the crowd stands transfixed. This is the climax of the brazen bull, a device that not only kills but reshapes a city's soul, leaving a legacy of fear and fascination in its wake. Death comes through a merciless progression. The bronze, heated to unbearable temperatures, sears flesh and bone, causing shock and organ failure within minutes, though the bull's design could prolong suffering for those with grim resilience. Ancient sources, like Diodorus Siculus, suggest some victims succumbed quickly, while others endured longer, their bodies fighting against the inevitable. The bull is doused once silence falls, its trapdoor opened to reveal a charred remnant, often disposed of in secret to avoid polluting sacred ground. In some accounts, Phalaris himself tested the bull on its creator, a grim irony that underscores the tyrant's ruthlessness. The bull's victims were often rebels or political foes, their anonymity in historical records like those scratched on wax tablets reflecting their erasure from Acragas's narrative. Yet their suffering lingered in oral traditions passed down by poets and travelers. The bull's rarity made it legendary. It wasn't a daily punishment, but a calculated act to quell dissent. Its public nature reinforced Phalaris's godlike authority, reminding citizens that betrayal meant not just death, but transformation into a spectacle. The resilience of victims, clinging to fleeting thoughts of family or freedom, speaks to a universal human defiance, even in the face of such engineered horror. The brazen bull's legacy outlived Phalaris, who was overthrown around 549 BCE. Later Greeks, like those in Athens, cited it as evidence of Sicilian tyranny's excesses, while Romans adopted similar theatrical punishments. Its influence persists in modern imagery of cruelty, from medieval torture devices to dystopian fiction. The bull forces us to confront the intersection of creativity and cruelty, how a culture that birthed philosophy and art could also craft such a device. It also highlights resilience, those final moments of mental resistance, where a victim might have recalled a loved one's face, echo the enduring human spirit. As you reflect on the bull's grim roar, consider its lesson. What does it reveal about the cost of power, and how do we judge societies that turn justice into spectacle? Story for the Thousand Slices. Linky in Imperial China. Imagine yourself in the crowded marketplace of Beijing around 900 CE during the late Tang Dynasty. The air hums with the clatter of vendors and the scent of steamed buns. But a somber hush falls as you, the listener, are led in chains toward a wooden platform. You've been convicted of a grave crime, perhaps treason against the emperor, or a heinous act like parricide. In this era, where Confucian order binds society, such offenses demand a punishment that reverberates through the community. Linky, or death by 1,000 cuts. This methodical execution, both ritual and spectacle, is designed to erase your humanity while reinforcing the emperor's divine mandate. Linky emerged in the Thames legal code, though its full codification came later under the Song and Ming dynasties. Historical records, like the Tang Code and later Qing accounts, describe it as a punishment for crimes that disrupted the social hierarchy: treason, rebellion, or acts against family piety. Unlike swift executions, Linky was a prolonged ordeal, its slowness a deliberate mirror of the crime's severity. The executioner, often a low-ranking official trained in precise knife work, was both artisan and enforcer, tasked with prolonging suffering while maintaining ritual decorum. The platform, raised in a public square, ensured all could witness the restoration of order. Your ordeal begins with a procession through the city, clad in a simple hemp robe, your wrists bound with rough cord. You're paraded past onlookers, merchants, scholars, and peasants who see your fate as a warning. The platform is stark, adorned only with a wooden post to secure you. The executioner, dressed in dark robes, wields a set of small, razor-sharp knives, their blades forged from iron mined in the northern provinces. Each knife is cleaned meticulously between cuts, a nod to the ritual purity demanded by Confucian principles. The crowd, hushed, watches not out of bloodlust but a grim acceptance of the state's authority. The first cuts are shallow, targeting the flesh of your arms and legs. The executioner works with chilling precision, slicing away small pieces of skin and muscle, each cut calculated to avoid vital organs. Blood seeps slowly, staining the platform, while pain radiates like fire. The Temps legal system, rooted in Confucian ideals of balance, saw Linky as a way to dismantle the body as the criminal had dismantled society. Historical accounts note that skilled executioners could make hundreds of cuts, prolonging the process for hours or even days. You're kept alive, sometimes fed water or herbs, to ensure the punishment's message endures. As the knife glints again, a question lingers. Why did Linky hold such power over the Chinese imagination? And what did its victims cling to in their moments of agony? You're now bound to the wooden post on Beijing's execution platform. Circa 900 CE, the Tang dynasty's twilight casting long shadows over the crowd. The executioner's knife, cold and precise, carves another sliver from your flesh, each cut a deliberate act in the ritual of Linky. You, the listener, convicted of a crime against the emperor's order, are both victim and spectacle. You're suffering a public lesson in the consequences of defying Confucian harmony. The marketplace, usually alive with trade, is silent, save for the faint drip of blood and your labored breaths. Linki is not just punishment. It's a performance of imperial power etched into your body, one slice at a time. The executioner's skill is paramount. Trained in anatomy and ritual, he knows how to prolong your life, avoiding arteries and organs to maximize the number of cuts. Historical records, like those in the Songshi Chronicles, describe executioners who could perform up to 1,000 cuts, though the number was often symbolic, with dozens sufficing in practice. Each slice removes a small piece of flesh, perhaps, from your thighs, arms, or chest, leaving you conscious to feel the mounting agony. The knives, kept sharp on a whetstone nearby, are rotated to maintain precision. Between cuts, attendants might splash water on your face or offer a bitter herbal concoction to stave off shock, ensuring the punishment's duration. The crowd, a mix of officials and commoners, watches with a mix of awe and dread, their silence reinforcing the emperor's unchallenged authority. Linki's roots lie in Confucian and legalist principles, where the body's destruction mirrored the crime's disruption of social order. The Tang Code prescribed it for offenses like treason or killing a parent, acts that threatened the filial piety at society's core. The public setting amplified its impact. Executions were often scheduled on market days to draw the largest crowds. Yet, within your torment, there's a flicker of human resilience. Some victims, as hinted in anecdotal accounts, focused on mantras or memories, perhaps, a childhood spent in a rural village, or the face of a loved one to endure the pain. Others, steeped in Buddhist or Taoist beliefs, might have sought spiritual detachment, imagining their soul escaping the ruined body. The cultural weight of Linki is profound. It wasn't just about punishment, but about restoring cosmic balance. The executioner, though a lowly figure, was a key actor in this ritual. His precision, a perverse artistry. The crowd's role was equally ritualistic, their presence affirming the emperor's mandate. As the cuts accumulate and your strength wanes, the platform slick with blood, a question emerges. How did Linki shape the Tang dynasty's understanding of justice? And what did its victims reveal about the limits of human endurance? You're now nearing the end of Linki, tethered to the blood-stained post in Beijing's marketplace. 900 CE. The executioner's knife, relentless and precise, has carved countless slivers from your body, leaving you a trembling shell. You, the listener, convicted of a crime against the Tang dynasty's order, are fading under the weight of pain and blood loss. The crowd, once a sea of faces, blurs into silence, their presence a testament to the emperor's unyielding authority. Linki, the death by 1,000 cuts, is reaching its grim climax, a ritual that dismantles not just your body, but the very idea of defiance in a Confucian world. Death creeps in slowly. Historical accounts, like those in the Ming Code and later Qing records, suggest that Linki could last hours, with skilled executioners prolonging life until the final, fatal cuts soften to the heart or throat. Blood loss, shock, or infection typically claimed victims first. The body's resilience stretched to its limits. The executioner, his face impassive, might pause to sharpen his blade or consult a supervising official, ensuring the ritual's precision. Once you're gone, your remains often unrecognizably removed discreetly, sometimes burned or buried outside the city to avoid spiritual pollution. The platform is scrubbed, ready for the next market day, as if your suffering were a passing shadow. Who were you? Perhaps a rebel plotting against the emperor, or a scholar who spoke too boldly. Linky's victims, rarely named in records, were erased to reinforce the state's narrative. Yet their stories lingered in whispers, recorded in magistrates' logs or travelers' tales. The punishment's rarity reserved for the gravest crimes made it a potent symbol. Under the Song and Ming, Linky grew more elaborate, with detailed protocols. But in the Tang, it was already a stark reminder of filial and imperial duty. The resilience of victims, enduring unimaginable pain, speaks to the human spiritism per Buddhist teachings. Might have sought nirvana in their final moments, transcending the flesh. Linky's legacy endured for centuries, persisting until its abolition in 1905 under the Qing. It influenced Western perceptions of Chinese barbarity, especially through 19th century photographs. But its true significance lies in its role as a cultural mirror. It reflected a society where order trumped mercy. Yet it also highlighted human endurance, those fleeting acts of mental defiance against physical ruin. Today, Linky challenges us to examine justice's evolution. How do we weigh retribution against compassion? And what do our own systems reveal about our values? As the marketplace resumes its bustle, the echo of Linky lingers, urging us to question the cost of absolute order. Story 5: The Skinning Rituals, Flaying in Ancient Assyria. Transport yourself to the sun-scorched plains of Nineveh, the heart of the Assyrian Empire. Around 700 BCE, the listener, stand accused of a grave offense, perhaps rebellion against King Ashurbanipal, or betrayal of his divine mandate. The Tigris River glints nearby, its waters feeding the empire's fertile lands, but today it frames a grim spectacle. In this world of towering ziggurats and relentless conquest, punishment is both a tool of control and a ritual to appease the gods. You face flaying, a practice so brutal it strips away not just flesh, but the very essence of defiance, leaving a legacy carved into Assyria's clay tablets. Flaying, the methodical removal of a living person's skin, was a hallmark of Assyrian justice, documented in royal annals and reliefs like those in Ashurbanipal's palace, reserved for high-profile enemies, rebel leaders, traitorous governors, or captured kingsit, served to terrify subjects across an empire stretching from Egypt to Persia. The Assyrians, masters of psychological warfare, used such punishments to project power, their cuneiform inscriptions boasting of enemies stripped like lambs. The process was not hasty, but ceremonial, conducted in public to maximize its impact. You're led to a central plaza where a crowd of soldiers, priests, and citizens gathers, their faces hardened by the empire's martial culture. Your ordeal begins with a procession through Nineveh's dusty streets, past mud-brick homes and temples to Ashur, stripped of your robes. You're bound to a wooden frame, your wrists and ankles secured with leather straps. The executioner, a skilled artisan trained in butchery, wields a bronze knife, its blade honed to razor sharpness on river stones. His assistants, clad in linen tunics, prepare bowls of salt and vinegar, crude antiseptics to prolong your life, not out of mercy, but to extend the spectacle. The crowd watches in silence, their fear of the king's wrath palpable. Priests chant hymns to Shamash, god of justice, framing your punishment as a divine act. The first cuts are precise, targeting the skin along your arms or back. The knife slices, shallowly peeling flesh in thin strips, each movement deliberate to avoid fatal blood loss. Pain sears through you, sharp and unrelenting, as blood trickles onto the dust below. Assyrian reliefs depict such scenes with chilling detail, victims writhing, executioners methodical. The process could take hours, with breaks to ensure you remain conscious. The skin, once removed, might be displayed or tanned, a gruesome trophy of the king's triumph. As the blade glints again, a question hangs in the air. Why did the Assyrians elevate flaying to an art? And what did its victims endure in their minds to face such horror? You're now bound to the wooden frame in Nineveh's plaza. Circa 700 BCE, the Assyrian sun blazing overhead as the executioner's bronze knife carves another strip of your skin. You, the listener, accused of defying the empire, are the centerpiece of a ritual that blends cruelty with divine purpose. The crowd, a mix of warriors, scribes, and priests, watches in silence, their loyalty to King Ashurbanipal reinforced by your suffering. The Tigris flows nearby, indifferent, flaying, as depicted in Assyrian palace reliefs, is not just punishment but a spectacle of power, designed to etch fear into the empire's vast dominion. The executioner works with chilling precision, his blade peeling thin layers of flesh from your limbs or torso. Each cut is calculated to avoid major arteries, prolonging your agony. Assistants dab salt or vinegar on the wounds, stinging fiercely to keep infection at bay and ensure you remain conscious. Historical records, like those on clay tablets from Ashurbanipal's library, describe flaying as a process that could last hours, sometimes days, depending on the victim's resilience and the executioner's skill. The removed skin, often preserved with tannin from oak galls, might be hung on city walls or sent to rebellious provinces as a warning. This wasn't mere sadism. It was propaganda, a message carved in flesh. The cultural context deepens the horror. In Assyrian cosmology, the body was a vessel of divine order, and flaying stripped away that sanctity, rendering you less than human. The ritual, overseen by priests invoking Shamash or Ishtar, framed your punishment as a restoration of cosmic balance. Flaying was reserved for high crimes, rebellion, treason, or sacrilege because it mirrored the unraveling of the empire's stability. The crowd's silence reflects their role as witnesses to this divine justice, their fear ensuring compliance. Yet, within your torment, resilience flickers. Some victims, as hinted in cuneiform accounts, might have clung to thoughts of family or homeland, mentally retreating to a village by the Euphrates. Others, steeped in Mesopotamian faith, might have prayed for their soul to join the stars, seeking escape beyond the pain. The executioner pauses, wiping his blade as the crowd shifts uneasily. The air smells of blood and fear. The plaza, a stage for Assyria's brutal theater. Your body, raw and exposed, trembles under the strain. yet your mind fights to hold on. The ritual's public nature amplifies its power, but it also immortalizes the victim's endurance in the empire's records. As the knife prepares to cut again, a question burns through the pain. How did flaying shape the Assyrian Empire's identity? And what strength did its victims find in the face of such methodical destruction? You're now at the edge of existence, bound to the bloodied frame in Nineveh's plaza. Circa 700 BCE, the executioner's knife has stripped much of your skin, leaving you raw and trembling under the Assyrian sun. You, the listener, condemned for defying the empire, are a fading symbol of rebellion, your suffering a testament to Ashurbanipal's unyielding power. The crowd, silent and watchful, bears witness to flaying's final act, a ritual that seals the empire's dominance. The Tigris glints nearby, its waters untouched by the horror unfolding on its banks. This is the climax of flaying, where pain meets eternity, and Assyria's brutal legacy is cemented. Death comes gradually, often through blood loss or shock, as the body's defenses collapse under the relentless cuts. Cuneiform records and reliefs from Nineveh's palaces suggest some victims endured for hours, their vitality prolonged by the executioner's skill and crude antiseptics like vinegar. When life finally ebbs, the frame is lowered, and your remains often unrecognizably are removed. The skin, tanned or stretched, might be displayed on city gates or sent to distant satrapies, a grim trophy of conquest. Priests, chanting to Shamash, ensure the ritual's spiritual closure, purifying the site with incense to appease the gods. Who were you? Perhaps a rebel chieftain from Elam, or a governor who betrayed the king. Assyrian annals rarely name victims, focusing instead on the king's triumphs. Yet their suffering lingers in stone carvings and oral tales. Flayings, rarity reserved for the most egregious crimes, made it a potent tool of terror, its memory haunting subjects from Babylon to Memphis. The resilience of victims, enduring unimaginable pain, speaks to a universal human spirit. Some, per Mesopotamian beliefs, might have imagined their soul ascending to the heavens, joining the stars revered by Assyrian priests, finding solace in cosmic eternity. Flaying's legacy shaped the Near East and beyond. It influenced later empires, like the Persians and Byzantines, who adopted similar displays of power. In modern times, it evokes questions about cruelty's role in governance. The Assyrians, with their libraries and laws, were not mere brutes. Their calculated brutality reflected a society obsessed with order through fear. The victims' silent defiance, clinging to memories or prayers, reminds us of humanity's capacity to endure. As you reflect on Nineveh's bloodied plaza, consider, what does flaying reveal about the balance between power and mercy? And how do we judge a civilization that wore its enemies' skins as banners? Story 6. The Stake of Agony. Impalement in the ancient Near East. Picture yourself in the shadow of Babylon's towering walls. Around 1800 BCE, under the reign of Hammurabi, whose code of laws governs the Mesopotamian world, you, the listener, have been found guilty of a grave crime, perhaps theft from a temple or rebellion against the king's authority. The air is thick with dust and the scent of date palms, but a crowd gathers in the city's central square, their eyes fixed on a sharpened wooden stake, its tip glistening in the sun. This is impalement, a punishment so brutal it defines the ancient Near East's approach to justice, etching fear into the hearts of all who witness it. Impalement was a common yet dreaded penalty across Mesopotamia, from Sumer to Assyria, documented in cuneiform texts like the Code of Hammurabi, reserved for high crime treason, sacrilege, or serious breaches of social order, served as both execution and public warning. The code, inscribed on a basalt stele, lists impalement for offenses like a wife conspiring to kill her husband. Reflecting the era's rigid hierarchies, the process was simple but horrific. A sharpened stake, often made from cedar or acacia, was driven through the body, ensuring a slow, agonizing death. Its public nature, as seen in Babylonian and later Assyrian records, amplified its terror. Your ordeal begins with a march through Babylon's bustling streets, past mud-brick homes and ziggurats dedicated to Marduk. Stripped of your linen garments, you're bound with ropes, your wrists chafed raw. The executioner, a grim figure trained in the art of death, oversees the stake's preparation. It's planted firmly in the ground, its base reinforced with stones to withstand your weight. The crowd merchants, priests, and farmers watches in silence, their presence mandated to reinforce the king's justice. Some whisper prayers to Shamash, god of justice, as if to cleanse the act's brutality. You're hoisted toward the stake, its point aimed at your lower body to prolong suffering. The executioner, guided by experience, ensures the stake avoids vital organs initially, piercing flesh with a sickening thud. Pain engulfs you, sharp and unrelenting, as the crowd's murmurs fade. The stake's wood, sourced from distant forests, is smooth to prevent immediate tearing, extending your agony. Historical accounts suggest victims could linger for hours, sometimes days, their bodies displayed as a warning. As the stake pierces deeper, a question lingers. Why was impalement so prevalent in the Near East? And what did its victims endure in their minds to face such a fate? You're now impaled on the wooden stake in Babylon's central square. Circa 1800 BCE, the sun scorching your exposed skin as pain radiates through every nerve. You, the listener, condemned for a crime against Hammurabi's order, are a living testament to the Mesopotamian obsession with control. The crowd, a mix of scribes, soldiers, and priests, watches in hushed awe, their silence reinforcing the king's unyielding authority. The Tigris flows nearby, its waters indifferent to your agony. Impalement, as recorded in cuneiform tablets, is not just execution but a ritual of power, designed to terrify and subdue an empire built on conquest and law. The stake, driven through your lower body, is positioned to prolong suffering. Executioners, skilled in anatomy from butchering livestock, know how to avoid major arteries, ensuring you remain conscious. The wood, smoothed from cedar or acacia, minimizes tearing but maximizes pain, its tip inching upward with your weight. Historical accounts, like those in the Code of Hammurabi and later Assyrian annals, note that victims could survive hours or even days, their bodies displayed on city walls or gates. Blood seeps slowly, pooling in the dust, while flies gather, drawn by the scent. Assistants might splash water to keep you alert, prolonging the spectacle for the crowd's edification. The cultural weight of impalement is profound. In Mesopotamian society, where gods like Marduk and Shamash governed justice, the punishment was a divine act, purging the community of moral corruption. The code prescribed it for crimes like treason or temple theft, which threatened the social fabric. The public setting off in near ziggurats or palaces ensured maximum visibility, with crowds summoned to witness the king's wrath. Yet, within your torment, resilience flickers. Some victims, as hinted in Sumerian laments, might have recited prayers to Inanna or Enlil, seeking spiritual escape. Others clung to memories of a child's laughter, a harvest festival to endure the unendurable. The executioner, his face stern, monitors your condition, ensuring the stakes slow work continues. The crowd's role is ritualistic, their presence affirming the king's divine mandate. Impalement's brutality, detailed in reliefs and texts, was a psychological weapon, its memory deterring rebellion across Babylon's vassal states. As pain clouds your mind and the stake shifts deeper, a question pierces through. How did impalement shape Mesopotamian society? And what inner strength did its victims summon in their final, agonizing moments? You're now suspended in agony on the stake in Babylon Square, circa 1800 BCE. Your body racked with pain as the sharpened wood claims its toll. You, the listener, convicted of defying Hammurabi's law, are a fading emblem of rebellion. You're suffering a public lesson in obedience. The crowd, their faces blurred by your waning vision, stands witness to the empire's justice, their silence a pact with the king's power. The Tigris glints in the distance, untouched by the blood pooling beneath you. Impalement's grim climax reveals the Mesopotamian world's harsh calculus, where order demands sacrifice, and your fate seals a warning for generations. Death creeps in through blood loss, shock, or infection. The stakes slow ascent, ensuring no swift release. Cuneiform records, like those from Babylonian and Assyrian archives, suggest victims could linger for hours, sometimes days, their bodies left as grisly displays. When life fades, the stake is removed, and your remains, often unrecognizable, are buried in unmarked pits or cast into the river to avoid spiritual pollution. Priests, invoking Shamash, burn incense to purify the site, ensuring the gods' favor. The crowd disperses, returning to their lives, the memory of your torment a quiet deterrent. Who were you? Perhaps a rebel from a vassal city, or a thief who defiled a temple. The Code of Hammurabi rarely names victims, their anonymity serving the narrative of royal triumph. Yet their suffering echoes in clay tablets and oral tales, a testament to human endurance. Impalement's rarity, reserved for the gravest crimes, made it a symbol of absolute power. Its image carved into reliefs to haunt subjects from your to Susa, victims clinging to life, might have whispered prayers to Nana or recalled a loved one's face. Their resilience, a quiet defiance against the stake's cruelty. Impalement's legacy rippled through history, influencing Persian and Ottoman practices, where public executions reinforced authority. In modern times, it prompts reflection on justice's brutality. Mesopotamia's laws, etched in stone, balanced order with fear. But the victim's silent strength, enduring pain, with fleeting thoughts of hope's peaks to humanity's core. As you imagine Babylon Square empty once more, consider What does impalement reveal about the cost of power? And how do we judge a civilization that staked its enemies to maintain its rule? Story 7. The weighted drownings, keel haulings, precursors in ancient maritime cultures. So imagine yourself on the rocky shores of a thriving port city on the Syrian coast. Around 1400 BCE, the Mediterranean laps at the docks, where ships laden with cedar and purple-dyed cloth bob in the tide. You, the listener, are a sailor accused of mutiny or theft aboard a Phoenician vessel, a crime that threatens the fragile order of maritime life. In this ancient world of trade and exploration, justice at sea is swift and brutal, and you face a precursor to keel hauling, a punishment known as weighted drowning. This ordeal, tying you to a weight and dragging you beneath the waves, is designed to punish and deter, leaving a legacy etched in the salty annals of the sea. Weighted drownings, though less documented than later keel haul, appear in fragments of Ugaritic and Phoenician texts, often as a maritime penalty for crimes like piracy or betrayal. These cultures, reliant on trade routes from Egypt to Anatolia, viewed the sea as both lifeline and judge. The punishment mirrored the ocean's unforgiving nature. A sailor who disrupted the crew's harmony was surrendered to the waves. Unlike land-based executions, this was a private affair, conducted on the open water to avoid polluting sacred shores. Your fate unfolds not in a city square, but on a creaking deck. Far from Ugarit's bustling markets, your trial is brief, held under the captain's stern gaze. Stripped of your tunic, you're bound with hemp ropes, the fibers cutting into your wrists. The crew, weathered men from Canaanite ports, watches silently, their loyalty to the ship outweighing any sympathy. A heavy stone, perhaps ballast from the ship's hold, smoothed by the CS, tied to your ankles. The weight, sourced from coastal quarries, ensures you'll sink, dragged beneath the hull's barnacle-encrusted underside. The ship, a cedar-built merchant vessel, rocks gently, its hull coated with pitch to repel water. The punishment's simplicity belies its terror. You'll be plunged into the sea, pulled along the ship's keel, where sharp shells and jagged wood await. As the crew prepares to cast you overboard, the sea's vastness looms. The water, cool and deceptively calm, hides currents that could prolong your suffering. Historical hints suggest victims were sometimes dragged repeatedly, kept alive to maximize the lesson. The crew's silence reflects the maritime code. Survival depends on order, and your crime threatens their lives as much as yours. As the stone tugs at your ankles and the waves beckon, a question rises like the tide. Why did ancient mariners turn to the sea for justice? And what did victims endure in those dark, submerged moments? You're now tethered to the heavy stone, the ropes biting into your skin as the Phoenician ship sways on the Mediterranean circa 1400 BCE. The listener, condemned for a maritime crime, are about to be plunged beneath the waves in a weighted drowning, a brutal precursor to keel. The crew, their faces hardened by years at sea, prepares to drag you under the hull, where barnacles and splintered wood await. The sea, stretching endlessly around the vessel, is both judge and executioner, its depths ready to claim you. This punishment, rooted in the maritime cultures of Ugarit and beyond, is a ritual of order, ensuring the ship's fragile harmony endures. The stone, tied to your ankles, pulls you overboard with a splash. The cold water engulfs you, salt stinging your eyes as the weight drags you down. The ship moves slowly, its oars dipping rhythmically, pulling you along the hull's underside. Barnacles, encrusted from months at sea, tear at your flesh, while the hull's pitch-coated wood scrapes your back. Ugaritic tablets and later Greek accounts suggest such punishments varied. Some victims were dragged once, others repeatedly, their survival prolonged to amplify the crew's lesson. Air burns in your lungs as you fight to hold your breath, the pressure mounting with each passing second. The cultural context shapes this ordeal. Maritime societies, like the Phoenicians, dependent on trade, viewed the ship as a microcosm of order. Mutiny or theft threatened not just the crew, but the gods of the sea, like Yam, whose wrath could sink a vessel. The punishment, conducted away from sacred land, avoided polluting coastal shrines. The crew's role was ritualistic, their silence a pact to restore balance. Yet, in your submerged terror, resilience flickers. Some sailors, as hinted in oral traditions, might have clung to thoughts of home a wife entire, a child inside to endure the pain. Others, steeped in Canaanite myths, might have prayed to Baal for mercy. Seeking strength in the divine, the drag ends, and you're hauled up, gasping and bleeding. The crew, under the captain's orders, may repeat the process, ensuring the lesson sinks in. The stone's weight, the hull's abrasions, and the sea's relentless pull test your endurance. The punishment's design, simple yet brutal, reflects the maritime world's harsh pragmatism. Survival demanded discipline. As you're pulled back into the water, the question lingers: how did weighted drownings define justice at sea? And what did victims find within themselves to face the ocean's merciless embrasure? Now dragged through the Mediterranean's depths, circa 1400 BCE, the stone at your ankles pulling you along the Phoenician ship's jagged hull. You, the listener, condemned for betraying the crew, are caught in the final throes of a weighted drowning. The sea's cold grip tightens, barnacles ripping your skin as your lungs scream for air. The crew, silent on the deck above, enforces a maritime code older than Ugarit's ports. This precursor to keel hauling, a ritual of the ancient sea, seals your fate while reinforcing the ship's fragile order. Its legacy rippling through maritime history. Death comes through drowning, shock, or blood loss from the hull's abrasions. Historical fragments suggest some victims perished quickly within a single drag, while others, hauled up and plunged again, endured multiple descents. When life fades, the crew cuts the ropes, letting the stone carry you to the seabed, a sacrifice to the sea gods. The ship sails on, its crew resuming their duties, the punishment a grim footnote in their voyage. No record names you perhaps a mutineer or a thief, but your fate lingers in oral tales, whispered in ports from Byblos to Crete. The resilience of victims shines through. In those submerged moments, some might have clung to memories a mother's song, a festival's warmth to defy the pain. Others, invoking Yam or Baal, sought spiritual escape, their faith a flicker against the dark. The punishment's rarity, reserved for crimes threatening the ship's survival, made it a potent deterrent. Phoenician and Ugaritic crews, bound by the sea's unwritten laws, used such acts to maintain discipline. Their ships, small worlds, where betrayal meant death for all. weighted drownings influenced later maritime punishments, like Greek and Roman keel hauling, where the sea remained judge. In modern times, they remind us of the ocean's dual role as lifeline and executioner. The victim's silent endurance, fighting for breath in the abyss, speaks to humanity's unyielding spirit. As you imagine the ship sailing away, the sea swallowing your story, reflect. What does this punishment reveal about the maritime world's harsh code? And how do we weigh justice against survival in the face of such relentless cruelty? Story 8. The Labyrinth of Shame. Public humiliations in ancient Egypt. Picture yourself in the bustling city of Thebes. Around 1300 BCE, under the reign of Ramesses II, Egypt's mighty pharaoh. The Nile glints nearby, its waters sustaining the fertile fields that feed the empire. You, the listener, have been accused of a crime, perhaps theft from a temple granary or slander against a noble. In this ancient society, where divine order or mop governs all, your offense disrupts the cosmic balance, demanding a public reckoning. You face a punishment, not of death, but of shame. A ritual of humiliation designed to strip your status and restore harmony. Welcome to the labyrinth of shame, where Egypt's streets become a stage for your disgrace. Public humiliation in ancient Egypt, documented in papyri like the judicial papyrus of Turin, was a calculated penalty for crimes that undermined social or religious order, adultery, theft, or disrespect to authority. Unlike executions, which were rare, shame punishments preserved the labor of the guilty while reinforcing ma'at. The process was meticulously planned, often overseen by priests or local officials, and performed in public spaces to maximize exposure. Your ordeal begins in Thebes's crowded marketplace, where merchants hawk linen and scribes tally grain. The air smells of dust and lotus flowers, but all eyes turn to you as the ritual unfolds. You're stripped of your fine linen kilt, replaced with a coarse sackcloth tunic, marking your fall from respectability. Your head is shaved, a profound disgrace in a culture where hair signified status, and your scalp is smeared with mud from the Nile's banks, symbolizing your return to the Earth's base state. Bound loosely with papyrus cords, you're paraded through the streets, led by a crier who proclaims your crime in a rhythmic chant. A wooden yoke, heavy with carved insults, is draped around your neck, its weight a constant reminder of your shame. The crowd artisans, farmers, and children follows, some jeering, others silent. Their presence affirming the pharaoh's divine justice, the route, a winding path through Thebes's temples and markets, is deliberate, ensuring every district witnesses your fall. At key stops, you're forced to kneel before statues of Amun or Mat, reciting confessions scripted by priests. The humiliation is not just physical, but spiritual, aligning your punishment with Egypt's religious ethos. Papyrus records suggest such rituals could last days, with offenders fed only bread and water to sustain them. As the crowd's taunts echo and the yoke chafes, a question lingers. Why did Egypt rely on shame to enforce order, and what did its victims endure in their hearts to face such public scorn? You're now trudging through Thebes's sunlit streets, circa 1300 BCE, the coarse sackcloth chafing your skin as the wooden yoke digs into your shoulders. You, the listener, accused of a crime against Mat, are deep in the labyrinth of shame, Egypt's ritual of public humiliation. The crowd merchants, priests, and curious children follows, their murmurs a constant reminder of your disgrace. The Nile's breeze carries the scent of papyrus and dust, but there's no relief from the weight of scorn. This punishment, rooted in Egypt's devotion to divine order, is a spectacle designed to restore balance by breaking your spirit before the eyes of the community. The procession winds past temples and granaries, each stop a station of shame. The crier, a minor official with a voice honed for projection, repeats your crime, perhaps stealing from a temple or defaming a noble. Your shaved head, caked with Nile mud, burns under the sun, a visible mark of your fall. The yoke, inscribed with hieroglyphs like thief or liar, creaks with every step, its weight calculated to exhaust but not kill. Papyrus records, such as those from the New Kingdom, describe how offenders were sometimes branded with temporary ink or forced to carry degrading objects, like broken pottery, symbolizing their fractured honor. At each temple, you kneel, reciting confessions to Ammon or Mat, your words scripted to affirm the god's justice. The cultural significance of this ritual is profound. In Egypt, Mat, truth, balance, and order was the foundation of society, and your crime threatened that harmony. Public humiliation, as noted in texts like the Instruction of Amenupi, was preferred over death for lesser crimes, preserving the labor force while reinforcing social norms. The crowd's role was ritualistic, their gears or silence a collective endorsement of the pharaoh's authority. Yet, within your humiliation, resilience flickers. Some offenders, as hinted in judicial papyri, might have focused on memories, family meal, a festival by the Nile to endure the scorn. Others, steeped in Egyptian spirituality, might have prayed for redemption, hoping their shame would appease the gods. The procession continues, your body aching, your spirit battered by the crowd's gaze. The priests, clad in white linen, monitor the ritual, ensuring it aligns with divine will. The punishment's duration, hours or days, depends on your crime's severity, with water and bread sustaining you. As the yoke presses harder and the chants grow louder, a question rises. How did public shame shape Egyptian society? And what inner strength did its victims summon to navigate this labyrinth of disgrace? You're now nearing the end of your journey through Thebes' streets. Circa 1300 BCE, the yoke's weight crushing your shoulders as the crowd's jeers fade into a dull hum. You, the listener, convicted of a crime against Ma'at, are a living lesson in Egypt's unforgiving code of order. The sackcloth clings to your sweat-soaked skin, your shaved head stinging with Nile mud. The labyrinth of shame, this ritual of public humiliation, reaches its climax. Designed to restore divine balance by stripping your dignity. As the Nile glints in the distance, your ordeal reveals the resilience of the human spirit and Egypt's complex dance with justice. The ritual concludes at a temple, perhaps dedicated to Amen, where priests in white linen pronounce your penance complete. The yoke is removed, your cords cut, but the shame lingers, your name tarnished, your status diminished. Papyrus records, like those from Deir el-Medina, note that humiliated offenders often returned to society, marked by their ordeal but spared death to serve the state. Some faced exile to labor in quarries, while others resumed their roles under watchful eyes. The crowd disperses, returning to their lives, the spectacle, a reminder of Matt's supremacy. Your body aches, but survival hinges on enduring the social death that outlasts the procession. Who were you? Perhaps a scribe who falsified records, or a worker who stole grain. Judicial texts rarely name offenders, their anonymity reinforcing the pharaoh's narrative. Yet their stories echo in village tales and temple archives, testaments to endurance. The ritual's public nature, staged on market days, ensured maximum impact, deterring others, while affirming divine order. Victims, clinging to memories of family or prayers to Osiris, found fleeting strength, their resilience a quiet defiance against disgrace. The punishments design humiliation over death preserved Egypt's workforce, while enforcing its moral code. Public humiliation's legacy shaped later societies, from Greek pillories to Roman shaming rituals, where social scorn enforced compliance. In modern times, it prompts reflection on justice and dignity. Egypt's devotion to Maat balanced order with mercy, but at a cost to the individual. The victim's silent endurance, facing crowds with whispered hopes, speaks to humanity's capacity to persevere. As you imagine Thebes' streets emptying, reflect, what does this ritual reveal about the power of shame? And how do we judge a society that rebuilt order on the broken spirits of its own story? 9. The Wheel of Breaking. Cartwheel punishments in ancient Europe's steppe into the wind-swept plains of Central Europe. Around 500 BCE, where Celtic tribes thrive in fortified hill settlements, you, the listener, have been accused of a grave crime, perhaps murder or theft from a tribal chieftain. In this world of iron tools and sacred groves, justice is communal and brutal, designed to restore balance to the tribe. You face the breaking wheel, a punishment that transforms a simple cartwheel into an instrument of agony. It spokes a grim canvas for your suffering. This ritual, rooted in the Iron Age traditions of the Celts and later Germanic tribes, is a spectacle of pain meant to deter and unify the breaking wheel. Though more famously associated with medieval Europe, has origins in these earlier tribal practices. As hinted in archaeological finds and later Greco-Roman accounts, such as those by Tacitus, reserved for crimes that threatened the tribe's survival. Murder, treason, or sacrilege, it was a public act, blending retribution with spiritual cleansing. The wheel, a symbol of mobility and the sun in Celtic cosmology, was repurposed to break the body and soul of the offender. Your ordeal begins in the heart of a hill fort, surrounded by thatched huts and earthen ramparts, where the tribe gathers under the watchful eyes of druids. You're stripped of your woolen cloak, your wrists bound with leather thongs, and led to a clearing where a heavy cartwheel, crafted from oak and reinforced with iron, leans against a wooden frame. The crowd, warriors, farmers, and kin, forms a circle, their faces stern with the weight of communal justice. The executioner, often a respected warrior, wields a heavy club or iron bar, its end blunted to crush rather than cut. You're tied to the wheel's spokes, your limbs stretched across its rough surface, the wood still smelling of forest and resin. The druids, clad in white robes, chant to appease the gods, invoking Tyrannus, the thunder god, to witness the restoration of order. The first blow lands, shattering bone with a sickening crunch. The executioner targets your limbs, aiming to break without killing instantly. prolonging the spectacle. Pain surges, raw and overwhelming, as the crowd remains silent, their presence affirming the tribe's unity. Archaeological evidence, like skeletal remains with crushed bones, suggests victims endured multiple blows, their suffering a communal catharsis. As the wheel turns slightly, exposing new angles for the club, a question echoes: why did the Celts turn a symbol of life into one of death? And what did victims cling to in their moments of torment? You're now lashed to the oak cartwheel in the heart of a Celtic Hilford, circa 500 BCE, your body racked with pain as the executioner's club delivers another bone-shattering blow. You, the listener, condemned for a crime against the tribe, are the focal point of the breaking wheel, a punishment that turns a tool of travel into a stage for agony. The crowd warriors, weavers, and druids stands in a solemn ring, their silence a testament to the ritual's gravity. The wind carries the scent of earth and smoke, but there's no relief from the crushing weight of justice. This ancient practice, rooted in Celtic and Germanic traditions, binds the tribe through your suffering. The executioner, his face grim, swings the iron bar with precision, targeting your arms and legs to maximize pain without immediate death. Each strike cracks bone, the sound echoing across the clearing. Archaeological finds, like fractured skeletons from Iron Age sites, suggest the process could last hours, with breaks to ensure you remain conscious. The wheel, its spokes rough with splinters, is occasionally turned to expose new areas, prolonging the ordeal. Blood seeps into the earth, mingling with offerings of grain scattered by druids to appease Tyrannus or the ritual's design, as hinted in later Roman accounts, was to break the body as the crime broke tribal tryst. The cultural weight of the breaking wheel is profound. In Celtic society, where community and honor were paramount, crimes like murder or theft threatened the collective survival. The wheel, a sacred symbol of the sun and cycle of life, was subverted to restore balance, its spokes a grim mirror of cosmic order. The crowd's role was ritualistic, their presence reinforcing tribal unity. Yet within your torment, resilience flickers. Some victims, as oral traditions suggest, might have focused on memories: a hunt in the forest, a child's laughter to endure the pain. Others, steeped in Celtic spirituality, might have whispered prayers to the gods, seeking strength in the face of annihilation. The executioner pauses, wiping sweat from his brow as the druids chant softly, their voices blending with the wind. The crowd remains bound by duty to witness the punishment's completion. The wheel's slow turn, creaking under your weight, amplifies the spectacle, its brutality a warning to all. As another blow looms, the question persists: how did the breaking wheel shape tribal identity? And what inner resolve did its victims summon to face such relentless agony? You're now broken on the cartwheel, your body a map of pain in the Celtic Hilford. Circa 500 BCE, the executioner's club has shattered your limbs, each blow a thunderclap in the silent clearing. You, the listener, condemned for a tribal crime, are a fading symbol of defiance. You're suffering a ritual to restore the community's honor. The crowd, warriors, elders, and druids watches, their faces etched with the weight of collective justice. The earth beneath, stained with blood and grain, bears witness to the breaking wheel's grim climax, a punishment that binds the tribe through your destruction. death creeps in through shock, blood loss, or infection. The wheel's relentless blows, ensuring no swift end. Archaeological evidence, like skeletal remains from Iron Age burials, suggests some victims lingered for hours, their bodies left on the wheel as a warning. When life fades, the wheel is dismantled. Your remains often buried in unmarked pits or cast into rivers to avoid spiritual pollution. Druids, chanting to Tyrannus, scatter herbs to purify the site, ensuring the gods' favor. The crowd disperses, the ritual's lesson etched into their memory, a deterrent for the tribe's survival. Who were you? Perhaps a warrior who killed a kinsman, or a thief who stole sacred offerings. Celtic oral traditions, preserved in later bardic tales, rarely name victims, their anonymity serving the tribe's narrative. Yet, their endurance lingers in stories whispered around fires. The wheel's rarity reserved for heinous crimes made it a powerful symbol, its image haunting tribal gatherings. Victims, clinging to thoughts of loved ones or prayers to Epona, showed resilience, their minds defying the body's ruin. The punishment's brutality, rooted in the sacred wheel, reflected a society balancing survival with spirituality. The breaking wheel's legacy endured, evolving into medieval Europe's execution wheels, where public suffering reinforced authority. In modern times, it challenges us to reflect on justice's cost. The Celts, with their intricate metalwork and spiritual depth, used cruelty to protect their fragile communities, but the victim's silent strength speaks to humanity's core. As you imagine the Hilfert emptying, the wheel still, consider, what does the breaking wheel reveal about the balance of community and punishment? And how do we judge a people who broke their own to preserve their way of life? Story 10. The Poison Ordeals. Trial by toxin in ancient India. Imagine yourself in a bustling town of the Maurya Empire, around 300 BCE, where the Ganges River shimmers under the tropical sun. You, the listener, stand accused of a crime, perhaps theft from a merchant, or blasphemy against a Vedic deity. In this ancient Indian society, where Dharma governs every act, justice often lies in divine judgment. You face a trial by ordeal, specifically the poison ordeal, a ritual where a toxic draft tests your innocence. This practice, rooted in the sacred texts of the time, turns your body into a battlefield for truth. Its outcome a verdict from the gods themselves. The poison ordeal, described in texts like the Arthashastra and Manu, was one of several trials by ordeal in ancient India, used when evidence was inconclusive, reserved for serious offenses, adultery, theft, or sacrilege. It relied on the belief that divine forces would protect the innocent. The ritual was overseen by Brahmin priests, whose authority lent spiritual weight, and conducted in a public square to affirm communal trust in Dharma. Your ordeal begins in a temple courtyard, surrounded by mud brick homes and banyan trees, where a crowd of farmers, traders, and nobles gathers, their eyes fixed on you. You're led to a raised platform, your cotton dhoti damp with sweat, your wrists unbound to signify the god's judgment. A priest, clad in white, prepares the poison, often a concoction of snowy milk bush or datura seeds, harvested from the Deccan's wilds. The dose, measured with ritual precision, is potent enough to kill, but calculated to allow survival for the innocent, according to Vedic belief. The crowd chants mantras, invoking Varuna, god of truth. As the priest hands you a clay cup, its contents bitter and pungent. You're instructed to drink slowly, the liquid burning your throat as it takes effect. The ritual's rules, etched in palm leaf manuscripts, demand you stand or sit upright, proving your strength as the poison works. The first effects are subtle, a racing pulse, a creeping dizziness. The crowd watches, their silence heavy with anticipation as your body becomes the arbiter of truth. Historical accounts suggest some survived, their recovery seen as divine exoneration, while others succumbed, their death a confirmation of guilt. As the poison spreads, your vision blurs, and a question lingers. Why did ancient India entrust justice to such a perilous test? And what did the accused endure in their minds as the toxin took hold? You're now standing on the temple platform in a Mauryan town, circa 300 BCE, the clay cup empty in your trembling hands. The bitter poison, perhaps datura or snui, courses through your veins, its effects tightening your chest and clouding your mind. You, the listener, accused of a crime against Dharma, are locked in the poison ordeal, a trial where your body's reaction determines your fate. The crowd, a mix of Brahmins, merchants, and villagers, watches in reverent silence, their chants to Varuna fading as your ordeal unfolds. This ritual, rooted in India's Vedic traditions, is a test of divine truth. Your survival or death, a verdict etched in the eyes of the gods. The poison's grip intensifies sweat beads on your brow. Your limbs weaken and nausea surges. The priest, his face calm, monitors your every move, noting signs of innocence or guilt as prescribed in texts like the Arthashastra. If you stand firm, resisting collapse, the gods may favor you. If you falter, Dharma condemns you. The dose, carefully measured, is meant to balance life and death, with antidotes like clarified butter, sometimes prepared nearby, though rarely used. Historical accounts, preserved in palm leaf records, describe survivors who vomited the toxin or endured its effects, their recovery hailed as divine proof. Others, overcome by convulsions, confirmed their guilt in the crowd's eyes. The cultural weight of the ordeal is immense. In Mauryan India, Dharma governed social and spiritual order, and trials by ordeal bridged human law with divine will. The Manasenti lists poison among tests like fire or water, each designed to reveal truth when mortal evidence failed. The public setting, often near a temple, reinforced communal trust in the gods' judgment. Yet, within your torment, resilience flickers. Some accused, as hinted in Vedic hymns, might have focused on mantras perhaps, to Vishnu, or Shiva seeking strength to endure. Others clung to memories of a riverside home or a mother's voice, their minds a refuge from the body's betrayal. The crowd's role is ritualistic, their presence affirming the sanctity of the ordeal. The priest, guided by sacred texts, may offer water to prolong your trial, ensuring the god's verdict is clear. As your vision swims and your knees buckle, the question burns brighter than the poison. How did the poison ordeal shape India's understanding of justice? And what inner resolve did its victims summon to face this divine gamble? You're now swaying on the temple platform, circa 300 BCE, the poison's fire coursing through your body as the Mauryan crowd watches in hushed awe. You, the listener, accused of violating Dharma, are at the climax of the poison ordeal, your fate hanging in the balance between divine mercy and judgment. The Ganges glimmers nearby, its waters indifferent to your struggle. Your vision fades, your limbs tremble, and the priest's chants to Varuna echo faintly. This ritual, enshrined in texts like the Arthashastra, is India's ultimate test of truth. Your body, the canvas for the gods' verdict. Its outcome a lesson for all death. If it comes, is slow convulsions, organ failure, or suffocation from the toxin's grip. Historical records suggest some perished within hours, their collapse seen as guilt confirmed. Others, surviving through vomiting or sheer endurance, were exonerated, their recovery a miracle celebrated with offerings. The priest, if convinced of innocence, might administer ghee or herbs, though such mercy was rare. Your body, if it fails, is removed quietly, buried beyond the town to avoid polluting sacred ground. Survivors, marked by the ordeal, often faced social stigma, their lives forever altered by the gods' scrutiny. Who were you? Perhaps a merchant accused of fraud, or a devotee charged with sacrilege. The Manusmriti and other texts rarely name the accused, their anonymity serving the narrative of divine justice. Yet their stories linger in temple records and oral tales, testaments to human resilience. The ordeal's rarity, used only when evidence was lacking, made it a powerful symbol, reinforcing faith in Dharma. Victims, clinging to mantras or memories of loved ones, showed defiance, their minds seeking refuge in a festival's joy or a prayer to Indra. Even as their bodies faltered, the poison ordeal's legacy shaped India's legal traditions, influencing later practices under the Guptas and beyond. In modern times, it challenges us to reflect on justice's reliance on chance and faith. Mauryan India, with its vibrant markets and sacred rituals, balanced order with divine will, but at a cost to the individual. The victim's silent strength in the toxin's fire with whispered hopes speaks to humanity's core. As you imagine the platform emptying, the crowd dispersing, consider, what does the poison ordeal reveal about the intersection of faith and justice? And how do we judge a society that left truth to the mercy of a poisoned cup? Story 11. The Buried Alive. Live entombment in Mesopotamian law. Imagine yourself in the ancient city of Babylon, around 1750 BCE, where the Euphrates River flows past towering ziggurats and bustling markets. You, the listener, have been accused of a heinous crime, perhaps desecrating a temple or conspiring against the king under Hammurabi's strict code. In this Mesopotamian world, where divine justice intertwines with human law, your punishment is live entombment, a fate that buries you beneath the earth to face the gods' judgment. This chilling ritual, designed to erase your presence while appeasing divine wrath, reveals the brutal efficiency of Babylonian justice, live and referenced in cuneiform texts like the Code of Hammurabi, was reserved for crimes that threatened the cosmic order, sacrilege, treason, or severe breaches of family loyalty. Unlike public executions, it was a private, almost sacred act, often conducted in sealed chambers to avoid polluting the community. Your ordeal begins in a dimly lit courtyard near the Temple of Marduk, where priests and officials gather, their faces stern. The air smells of clay and incense, but the weight of your sentence hangs heavier than the river's humidity. You're stripped of your linen robes, clad only in a coarse cloth, and led to a prepared pit, its walls lined with baked clay bricks. The pit, dug near the city's edge, is narrow and deep, just wide enough to hold you. Priests chant hymns to Shamash, god of justice, as they bind your wrists with palm fiber ropes. A clay slab, etched with curses to ward off your restless spirit, will seal the chamber. The crowd's mall, composed of officials and kinnis, silent, their presence ensuring the ritual's sanctity. You're lowered into the pit, the earth cool against your skin. As the first clods of dirt are shoveled in, the initial moments are suffocating. The darkness absolute as the pit closes around you. The code notes that entombment could lead to death by asphyxiation or starvation, a slow end meant to mirror the gravity of your crime. As the dirt piles higher, cutting off light and air. And what did the condemned endure in their final, claustrophobic moments? You're now encased in the narrow pit outside Babylon, circa 1750 BCE, the damp earth pressing against your body as the last rays of light vanish. You, the listener, condemned for a crime against Hammurabi's order, are trapped in the ritual of live entombment, a punishment that surrenders you to the underworld's judgment. The muffled chants of priests above, invoking Shamash, fade as the clay slab seals the chamber. The air grows thin, the silence deafening. This ritual, rooted in Mesopotamia's sacred laws, is a grim offering to the gods, ensuring the city's purity through your sacrifice. The pit's walls, lined with baked bricks, are unyielding, their coolness a fleeting comfort. Your wrists, bound with palm fiber ropes, strain against the confines, but movement only hastens exhaustion. Cuneiform texts, like those in the Code of Hammurabi, suggest entombment was designed to prolong suffering. Death by suffocation or starvation could take hours or days. The slab above, etched with curses, ensures your spirit cannot haunt the living. No crowd lingers. Only a few officials remain, their task to confirm the pit's ceiling, leaving you to the gods' mercy. The cultural weight of this punishment is profound. In Mesopotamia, where divine order governed life, crimes like temple theft or treason disrupted the balance between earth and heavens. Live entombment, often hidden from public view, was a sacred act, purifying the community without bloodshed. Yet, within your claustrophobic prison, resilience flickers. Some victims, as hinted in Sumerian laments, might have whispered prayers to Inanna, seeking spiritual escape. Others clung to memories, a market's bustle, a child's smile to fend off despair. The darkness amplifies every thought, your mind a battleground against the crushing weight of earth. The air grows thinner, your breaths shallow, as the ritual's purpose erasing your existence nears completion. The priest's chants have ceased, the world above moving on. The pit, a silent judge, holds you in its grip, a testament to Babylon's unyielding justice. As your strength fades, a question persists. How did live entombment reflect Mesopotamia's fear of divine wrath? And what inner strength did its victims summon to face the suffocating dark? You're now entombed in the pitch-black pit outside Babylon, circa 1750 BCE, the earth's weight crushing your spirit as air dwindles. You, the listener, condemned for a crime against the divine order, are fading in the ritual of live entombment, a punishment that buries you to appease the gods. The clay slab above, sealed with curses, ensures your isolation, the silence broken only by your ragged breaths. The Euphrates flows nearby, oblivious to your fate. This ritual's climax, a silent offering to Shamash, reveals the pit's confines hastening your end. Cuneiform records, like those in the Code of Hammurabi, suggest some lingered for days, their bodies succumbing slowly to the airless dark. When life fades, the pit remains sealed, your remains left to merge with the earth, avoiding spiritual pollution. Priests, their rituals complete, scatter offerings to pacify restless spirits. And Babylon moves on, your fate a whispered warning. Survivors, exceedingly rare, faced exile, their survival a divine anomaly, but their lives forever marked by shame. Who were you? Perhaps a priest who stole sacred offerings, or a conspirator against the king. Mesopotamian texts rarely name victims, their anonymity serving the narrative of divine justice. Yet, their endurance echoes in laments and oral tales, stories of those who faced the earth's embrace. The ritual's secrecy, reserved for heinous crimes, made it a potent symbol, its terror haunting the city's fringes. Victims, trapped in darkness, might have prayed to Enlil or clung to memories of a loved one's voice. Their resilience, a quiet defiance against oblivion, live in entombments, legacy influenced later Near Eastern practices. From Persian burials to biblical accounts where isolation punished betrayal. In modern times, it prompts reflection on justice's hidden cruelties. Mesopotamia, with its ziggurats and laws, balanced order with fear, its pits a silent testament to divine authority. The victim's strength enduring the dark with whispered hopes speaks to humanity's core. As you imagine the pit's silence, Babylon bustling above, consider, what does live entombment reveal about the cost of divine order? And how do we judge a society that buried its own to appease the gods? Story 12, The Fire Walks, Ordeal by Flame in ancient Celtic and Germanic tribes. Picture yourself in a misty forest clearing in northern Europe. Around 100 BCE, where a Celtic or Germanic tribe gathers under the shadow of ancient oaks. You, the listener, have been accused of a grave offense, perhaps theft from the tribal horde or breaking a sacred oath. In this world of iron swords and sacred springs, justice is not decided by mere words, but by the gods themselves. You face the ordeal by flame, a trial where you must walk over glowing coals to prove your innocence. This ritual, rooted in the spiritual traditions of the Celts and Germanic peoples, is a test of divine favor. Your body, the canvas for the gods' verdict, the ordeal by flame. Referenced in later Roman accounts, like those of Tacitus and sparse archaeological hints, was a sacred ritual among tribes like the Gauls and Alemanni, used for crimes where evidence was lacking. Adultery, betrayal, or sacrilege. It relied on the belief that deities like Tyrannus or Woden would protect the innocent. The trial was conducted in a communal space, overseen by druids or tribal elders, to affirm the tribe's unity with the divine. Your ordeal begins at dusk, in a clearing ringed by standing stones, where the tribe, warriors, weavers, and kin gather, their faces lit by flickering torches. You're stripped of your woolen cloak, your feet bare to face the fire's judgment. The druids, clad in white robes, prepare a bed of oak coals, kindled from sacred wood and fanned to a glowing red. The path, perhaps 10 paces long, is raked smooth, its heat shimmering in the cool evening air. A shaman chants, invoking the gods to guide the trial. While the crowd remains silent, their presence a testament to the ritual's weight. You're given no preparation, no oils or wraps, only a moment to pray. The coals, sourced from the forest's heart, are a divine medium, their heat a test of truth. As you step toward the glowing path, the heat sears your souls, pain flaring with each heartbeat. The rules, passed down through oral tradition, demand you walk steadily, neither running nor stopping, to prove your innocence. If your feet emerge unscathed or heal quickly, the gods have spared you. If they blister and fester, guilt is confirmed. The crowd watches, their breath held, as you take your first step. A question burns brighter than the coals. Why did these tribes entrust justice to fire? And what did the accused cling to as they faced the flames? You're now standing before the glowing bed of coals in the forest clearing. Circa 100 BCE, the heat rising in waves as your bare feet hover over the fiery path. You, the listener, accused of a crime against your Celtic or Germanic tribe, are locked in the ordeal by flame, a trial where the god's judgment burns through your flesh. The crowd warriors, elders, and children watches in solemn silence, their faces flickering in the torchlight. The druids' chants to Tyrannus or Woden echo through the oaks, blending with the crackle of embers. This ritual, a sacred test of truth, binds the tribe through your pain. Its outcome, a divine verdict on your innocence. The first step sears your souls, pain shooting through your body as you force yourself forward. The coals, raked from sacred oak, burn at a temperature that blisters but doesn't consume. A balance maintained by the druids' skill. Oral traditions, later recorded by Roman observers, suggest the path was short, 10 to 12 paces, but each step was a test of endurance. If you falter or collapse, guilt is assumed. If you complete the walk and your wounds heal cleanly, the gods proclaim your innocence. The crowd's silence is ritualistic, their presence affirming the tribe's trust in divine justice. Your heart pounds, sweat mixing with the smoky air. As you take another step, the cultural significance of the ordeal is profound. In Celtic and Germanic societies, where community and honor were paramount, crimes like oath-breaking or theft threatened the tribe's survival. The fire, a symbol of purification and divine power, was a conduit to the gods, as seen in rituals like Beltane. The ordeal's public nature, staged in sacred clearings, reinforced communal bonds. Yet, within your agony, resilience flickers. Some accused, as hinted in bardic tales, might have focused on mantras or memories a loved one's face, a feast by the fire to endure the pain. Others, steeped in tribal spirituality, prayed for protection, their faith a shield against the flames. The druids, their eyes keen, monitor your steps, noting every wince or stumble. The crowd's role is to witness their silence, a pact with the divine. The ritual's design, simple yet brutal, tests not just your body, but your spirit. As you near the path's end, your feet raw and trembling, a question smolders. How did the ordeal by flame shape tribal justice? And what inner strength did its victims summon to walk through fire? You're now at the end of the fiery path, circa 100 BC. Your feet scorched and trembling as you stagger off the glowing coals. You, the listener, accused of a tribal crime, have endured the ordeal by flame, your body bearing the god's judgment. The Celtic or Germanic crowd, ringed around the clearing, watches in silence, their torchlit faces awaiting the druid's verdict. The air smells of charred wood and sweat, the oaks looming as silent witnesses. This ritual's climax, a test of divine truth, reveals the tribe's faith in fire and the resilience of those who walked its path. The druids examine your feet, their judgment swift. If your burns are mild or heal quickly within days, per tribal custom the gods have spared you, proclaiming innocence. Severe blisters or infection, as noted in later Roman accounts, confirm guilt, often leading to exile or death. Those who collapse mid-trial face immediate condemnation. Your fate, whether survival or further punishment, is sealed quietly, the crowd dispersing as the coals are doused with water from a sacred spring. Your body, if you perish, is buried beyond the settlement to avoid spiritual taint, while survivors bear the scars, physical and social, of their ordeal. Who were you? Perhaps a warrior who broke an oath. Tribal records, oral and fleeting, rarely name the accused, their anonymity serving the gods' narrative. Yet, their endurance echoes in songs sung by bards, tales of those who walked through fire. The ordeal's rarity used for ambiguous crimes made it a potent symbol, reinforcing faith in divine justice. Victims, clinging to prayers for Tyrannus or memories of a harvest dance, showed defiance, their spirits unbowed by pain. The fire ordeal's legacy influenced later European trials, from medieval witch burnings to judicial ordeals where faith and pain intertwine. In modern times, it prompts reflection on justice's reliance on divine chance. Celtic and Germanic tribes, with their sacred groves and warrior codes, balanced community with cruelty. Their rituals, a testament to survival's cost. The victim's silent strength enduring flames with whispered hopes speaks to humanity's core. As the clearing empties, the coals cold, consider, what does the fire ordeal reveal about the interplay of faith and punishment? And how do we judge a people who sought truth in the flames? Story 13, The Stone of Silence. Stoning in ancient Mesopotamia. Imagine yourself in the dusty streets of your around 2000 BCE in the heart of Sumerian Mesopotamia. The sun beats down on mud brick homes, and the ziggurat of Nana looms over the city. You, the listener, have been accused of a grave crime, perhaps adultery or blasphemy against the moon god. In this ancient society, where divine and human laws intertwine, justice is a communal act, and you face stoning, a punishment known as the Stone of Silence. This ritual, designed to purge the community of sin, turns neighbors into executioners. Its brutality, a testament to the Sumerians' devotion to order. Stoning, referenced in texts like the Code of Yornamu and later Babylonian records, was a penalty for offenses that threatened the social or divine fabric. Adultery, theft from temples, or cursing a deity. Unlike elite punishments, stoning involved the community, symbolizing collective responsibility to restore balance. The ritual was public, held in a city square to ensure all bore witness. Your ordeal begins outside your walls, near a sacred grove where a crowd of farmers, scribes, and priests gathers. their hands clutching stones from the Euphrates banks. You're led to the execution ground, your linen tunic torn, your wrists bound with palm fiber ropes. The high priest, adorned with a fringed robe, recites prayers to Shamash, god of justice, framing your punishment as a divine mandate. A circle of stones, roughly piled, marks the spot where you'll stand, exposed to the crowd's judgment. Each participant, men, women, even children, holds a smooth river stone, their faces a mix of duty and unease. The rituals, rules, etched on clay tablets, demand that the community act as one, each throw a cleansing act to protect yours prosperity. The first stone strikes, sharp and heavy, bruising your skin. Pain flares as more follow. The crowd's throws uneven but relentless. The stones, worn by the river, vary from small pebbles to fist-sized rocks, their weight calculated to wound without immediate death. Historical accounts suggest stoning could last minutes or hours, depending on the crowd's fervor. As the barrage begins, blood trickling into the dust, a question echoes. Why did Mesopotamia entrust justice to the hands of its people? And what did the accused endure in their hearts as the stones fell? You're now standing in the execution circle outside your circa 2000 BCE. As stones pelt your body, each impact a jolt of pain. You, the listener, accused of a crime against Sumerian order, are the focal point of the Stone of Silence, a ritual where the community enforces divine justice. The crowd farmers, artisans, and priests throws with grim determination, their stones drawn from the Euphrates banks. The ziggurat looms in the distance, its shadow a reminder of the gods' watchful eyes. This stoning, rooted in Mesopotamia's sacred laws, is a collective act to purge sin and restore balance. The barrage continues, stones striking your arms, legs, and torso. The high priest, chanting to Shamash, ensures the ritual's sanctity, his voice rising above the thuds. Clay tablets, like those from the Code of Urinamu, describe stoning as a communal punishment, its slowness deliberate to maximize shame and suffering. Some throws miss, kicking up dust, while others draw blood, your tunic now stained and torn. The crowd's role is ritualistic, each stone a symbol of their duty to uphold Dharma. Historical accounts suggest victims could endure dozens of strikes, survival hinging on the crowd's mercy or fatigue. The cultural weight of stoning is immense. In Sumerian society, where gods like Enlil and Nana governed fate, crimes like adultery or sacrilege threatened cosmic harmony. Stoning, by involving the community, reinforced collective responsibility, ensuring no single executioner bore the sin. The public setting, near city gates or sacred groves, amplified its impact, deterring others. Yet, within your agony, resilience flickers. Some victims, as hinted in Sumerian laments, might have clung to prayers for Inanna's mercy or memories of a family feast by the river. Others, facing the crowd's gaze, sought inner strength to endure the relentless hail. The priest pauses the ritual briefly, inspecting your condition, ensuring the god's will is clear. The crowd, their hands stained with dust, continues, their throes a mix of duty and hesitation. Your body weakens, blood pooling in the dirt, but your mind fights to hold on. The ritual's design, both brutal and communal, binds the tribe through your pain. As another stone strikes, the question lingers. How did stoning shape Mesopotamian justice? And what resolve did its victims find to face the crowd's unyielding judgment? You're now crumbling under the relentless hail of stones in yours execution circle. Circa 2000 BCE, your body, battered and bleeding, sways as the crowd's throes grow sporadic. You, the listener, condemned for a crime against Sumerian order, are at the climax of the Stone of Silence. The Euphrates glints nearby, indifferent to the blood soaking the earth. The crowd, scribes, farmers, and priests, stands firm, their stones a testament to their duty to Shamash and the community. This stoning, a ritual of divine justice, seals your fate while reinforcing Mesopotamia's sacred order. Death comes through blunt trauma, blood loss, or shock, the stone's cumulative force overwhelming your body. Historical records, like those on Sumerian tablets, suggest some victims perished quickly, within minutes, while others lingered, their endurance prolonging the spectacle. When you collapse, the priest signals the end, and the crowd lowers their stones. Your remains, often unrecognizable, are buried outside the city to avoid polluting sacred ground, sometimes with offerings to appease restless spirits. The circle of stones is cleared, the ritual complete, leaving only whispers of your fate. Who were you? Perhaps a merchant who stole from a temple, or a spouse guilty of adultery. Sumerian texts, like the Code of Ur-Nammu, rarely name victims, their anonymity serving the narrative of divine retribution. Yet their stories echo in laments and oral tales, testaments to human resilience. Stoning's communal nature made it a powerful deterrent, its memory haunting yours markets. Victims, facing the crowd's wrath, might have clung to prayers for Enlil or memories of a child's laughter. Their minds a refuge from pain. Stoning's legacy persisted in later Near Eastern cultures, from Babylonian laws to biblical accounts, where communal punishment enforced order. In modern times, it prompts reflection on collective justice and its costs. Sumerians, with their ziggurats and laws, balanced community with cruelty, their rituals a shield against chaos. The victims' silent endurance facing stones with whispered hopes speaks to humanity's core. As the crowd disperses and your streets resume their bustle, consider, what does stoning reveal about the power of collective judgment? And how do we judge a society that silenced its own with stones? Story 14, The Cage of Exposure. Public caging in ancient Carthage. Transport yourself to the vibrant port of Carthage. Around 400 BCE, where the Mediterranean breeze carries the scent of salt and trade. You, the listener, have been accused of a grave offense perhaps, embezzling from the city's treasury or betraying a military secret to a rival like Rome. In this Phoenician stronghold, where commerce and Punic gods like Baal Hammon reign, justice is a public spectacle. You face the cage of exposure, a punishment that confines you in a wooden or iron cage, suspended above the bustling agora, to endure the elements and the crowd's scorn. This ritual, meant to shame and deter, reveals Carthage's harsh devotion to order. Public caging, though sparsely documented, appears in Punic inscriptions and Greek accounts, like those of Diodorus Siculus, as a penalty for crimes that undermined the state's stability, treason, fraud, or sacrilege. Unlike executions, it preserved the offender for public humiliation, reinforcing communal loyalty. The ritual was staged in Carthage's central market, where merchants traded Tyrian, purple, and cedar. Your ordeal begins at dawn as you're led through streets lined with whitewashed homes and temples. The Tophets smoke in the distance. You're stripped of your fine tunic, clad in a coarse sackcloth and bound with hemp ropes. The cage, crafted from cedar or iron lattice, is small, forcing you to crouch or stand awkwardly. Hoisted by pulleys to hang above the agora, it sways in the wind, creaking ominously. The crowd sailors, priests, and traders gathers below, their murmurs a mix of curiosity and judgment. Priests of Tanit, in flowing robes, chant to sanctify the punishment, framing it as a divine cleansing. The cage's bars, rough and unyielding, dig into your skin, while the sun and sea air begin their slow assault. Exposure is the punishment's core, without food or water unless sparingly provided. You face dehydration, hunger, and the elements' wrath-scorching days and chilly nights. Historical hints suggest victims could linger for days, their suffering a public lesson. The crowd's gaze, more punishing than the cage itself, strips your dignity as you sway above the agora. A question hangs heavier than the ropes. Why did Carthage choose exposure as justice? And what did its victims endure in their minds to face such public torment? You're now confined in the swaying cage above Carthage's agora, circa 400 BCE, the cedar bars pressing into your cramped body. You, the listener, accused of a crime against the Punic state, endure the cage of exposure, a punishment that blends physical torment with public shame. The Mediterranean sun burns your skin, the sea breeze chilling you at night, while the crowd below, merchants, sailors, and priests, watches with a mix of disdain and duty. The creak of ropes and the hum of the market below underscore your isolation. This ritual, rooted in Carthage's devotion to order, turns your suffering into a communal lesson. The cage's design is mercilessly simple. Its tight confines prevent rest, forcing you to crouch or stand, your muscles aching. Historical accounts, like those in fragmentary Punic inscriptions, suggest cages were often suspended high to maximize visibility, ensuring all of Carthage saw the cost of betrayal. Priests of Baal Hamun, chanting softly, oversee the ritual, their prayers framing your ordeal as a sacrifice to divine justice. The crowd's role is crucial, their stares a social sentence, stripping your status as a citizen. Some throw insults or rotten fruit, though others turn away, uneasy with the spectacle. The elements are your true tormentors. The sun, unrelenting in Carthage's coastal climate, dehydrates you, your lips cracking. Nights bring cold, the sea air seeping into your bones. Sparse water or bread, if provided, only prolongs your suffering, as noted in Greek accounts of Punic punishments. Your body weakens, but the mind bears the heavier burden, the shame of exposure before neighbors and kin. Some victims, as hinted in oral traditions, might have clung to memories of family meal, a voyage to Tyre to endure. Others, invoking Tanit, sought spiritual refuge, their prayers a whisper against the crowd's judgment. The ritual's cultural weight is profound. Carthage, a mercantile power, valued loyalty to the state above all. Public caging, reserved for crimes like treason or fraud, reinforced this by making betrayal visible. The agora's bustle continues, below vendors hawking goods, ships unloading at the port, but your cage is a silent warning. As your strength fades and the crowd's gaze persists, a question burns. How did public caging shape Carthage's social order? And what inner resolve did its victims summon to endure this suspended agony? You're now fading in the cage above Carthage's agora, circa 400 BCE, your body racked by hunger, thirst, and the relentless elements. You, the listener, condemned for a crime against the Punic state, sway in the cedar or iron lattice, a symbol of betrayal exposed to all. The crowd, below traders, priests, and sailors, begins to thin, their gazes lingering as your strength ebbs. The Mediterranean sun scorches, the night's chill bites, and the ropes creak ominously. This is the climax of the Cage of Exposure, a ritual that seals Carthage's order through your suffering. Its legacy, a testament to human endurance and shame. Death creeps in through dehydration, starvation, or exposure. The cage's design ensuring a slow demise. Fragmentary Punic records and Greek accounts suggest victims could linger for days, sometimes a week, their fate a public warning. When you succumb, priests signal the cage's lowering, your remains buried beyond the city to avoid spiritual pollution, often with offerings to appease Baal-Haman. Survivors, rare and marked by scars, face exile or ostracism, their shame outliving the cage. The agora resumes its bustle, the punishment of fading memory but a lasting deterrent. Who were you? Perhaps a merchant who stole from the state, or a soldier who leaked secrets. Punic texts rarely name victims, their anonymity reinforcing the city's narrative of order. Yet their stories linger in market tales, whispers of endurance against relentless shame. The cage's public nature, staged in the heart of Carthage, made it a powerful tool, deterring crimes that threatened the state's wealth or security. Victims, clinging to prayers for Tanit, showed resilience, their minds defying the body's collapse. The Cage of Exposure's legacy influenced later Mediterranean punishments, from Roman gibbets to Byzantine displays, where shame enforced control. In modern times, it prompts reflection on justice and dignity. Carthage, with its bustling ports and sacred rites, balanced prosperity with cruelty. Its cages, a stark reminder of loyalty's cost. The victim's silent strength, enduring exposure with whispered hopes, speaks to humanity's core. As the agora empties and your cage stills, consider, what does public caging reveal about the power of shame, and how do we judge a society that hung its own to preserve its order? Story 15: The Binding of the Damned. Ritual binding in ancient Mesoamerica. Picture yourself in the vibrant city of Teotihuacan around 200 CE, where towering pyramids cast shadows over bustling plazas. You, the listener, have been accused of a grave offense, perhaps stealing from a temple or defying a priestly decree. In this Mesoamerican world, where gods like Quetzalcoatl demand harmony, justice is a sacred act. You face ritual binding, a punishment that entwines you in ropes or vines, offering you to the gods' judgment through confinement and exposure. This ordeal, rooted in the spiritual traditions of the region, transforms your body into a symbol of atonement, witnessed by the community. Ritual binding, hinted at in codices and archaeological finds like reliefs from later Maya sites, was a penalty for crimes that disrupted cosmic balance, sacrilege, theft, or social betrayal. Unlike sacrifice, it preserved the offender for divine scrutiny, often in a public setting, to reinforce communal order. Your ordeal begins in Teotihuacan's Avenue of the Dead, lined with stone temples and vibrant murals. The crowd artisans, farmers, and priests get their faces painted with ochre, eyes fixed on the ritual platform where your fate unfolds. You're stripped of your cotton tunic, clad only in a loincloth, and led to a wooden frame. Priests, adorned with feathered headdresses, chant to Tlaloc, god of rain, as they bind you with magway ropes, their fibers rough against your skin. The ropes, harvested from agave plants, are knotted tightly around your wrists, ankles, and torso, restricting movement but not breath. The frame, carved with serpent motifs, is raised in the plaza, elevating you above the crowd. The binding is precise, designed to immobilize without killing, leaving you exposed to the sun, wind, and divine will. The first hours bring discomfort tropes, muscles cramping, the sun scorching your skin. The crowd's murmurs, a mix of reverence and judgment, amplify your shame. Codices suggest such rituals could last days, with minimal water provided to prolong the ordeal. Your crime, proclaimed by a priest, echoes across the plaza, framing you as a disruptor of harmony. As the ropes tighten and the crowd watches, a question lingers. Why did Mesoamerican societies rely on binding as divine judgment? And what did the accused endure in their minds to face such relentless confinement? You're now bound to the wooden frame in Teotihuacan's plaza. Circa 200 CE, the magway ropes cutting into your skin as the sun climbs higher. You, the listener, accused of a crime against the cosmic order, are suspended in the ritual binding, a punishment that offers your suffering to the gods. The crowd priests, traders, and farmers watches in solemn silence, their faces painted with devotion to Quetzalcoatl and Tlaco. The Avenue of the Dead hums with distant activity, but here, your immobility is a spectacle of divine justice, a lesson etched in rope and endurance. The ropes, knotted with ritual precision, restrict every movement, your limbs aching from the strain. Priests, their feathered headdresses swaying, sprinkle maize dust around the frame, invoking the gods to judge your soul. Archaeological hints and later Maya codices suggest the binding was meant to test resilience. Survival signaled divine favor, while collapse confirmed guilt. The sun's heat intensifies, dehydration setting in, while nights bring the chill of the high plateau. Sparse sips of pulque, a fermented agave drink, may be offered to prolong your ordeal, ensuring the god's verdict is clear. The crowd's gaze, unrelenting, adds shame to your physical torment. The cultural weight of this ritual is profound. In Mesoamerica, where balance with the gods sustained life, crimes like theft or sacrilege threatened the community's survival. Ritual binding, staged in public plazas, reinforced this harmony, the ropes symbolizing the binding of chaos. The crowd's role was sacred, their presence affirming the gods' authority. Yet, within your confinement, resilience flickers. Some victims, as suggested in oral traditions, might have focused on memories, a child's laughter, a market's colors to endure. Others, steeped in Mesoamerican spirituality, chanted silent prayers to Totec, seeking strength in their suffering. The priests monitor your condition, their chants a steady rhythm against the plaza's hum. The ropes, though strong, may be adjusted to prevent death, prolonging the ritual's message. Your body weakens, but your mind fights to hold on, trapped in a web of pain and shame. The ritual's design, both cruel and sacred, binds the community through your ordeal. As the sun sets and the ropes bite deeper, a question persists. How did ritual binding shape Mesoamerican justice? And what inner resolve did its victims summon to face this divine confinement? You're now fading on the wooden frame in Teotihuacan's plaza, circa 200 CE. The maguey ropes, a relentless cage around your trembling body. You, the listener, condemned for disrupting the cosmic order, are at the climax of the ritual binding. Your suffering a plea for divine mercy. The crowd artisans, priests, and farmers' watches, their silence a testament to the gods' judgment. The pyramids loom, their stone faces indifferent to your pain. This ritual, a sacred act of atonement, seals the community's harmony through your ordeal. Its legacy a testament to Mesoamerica's spiritual depth. If it comes, is slow dehydration, exhaustion, or infection from chafed wounds. Codices and archaeological clues suggest some survived, their endurance seen as divine exoneration, while others succumbed, their death a confirmation of guilt. When you falter, priests lower the frame. Survivors, scarred and shamed, face ostracism or labor in distant fields, their lives forever marked. The plaza clears, the ritual's lesson lingering in the crowd's memory. Who were you? Perhaps a merchant who stole sacred jade, or a devotee who defied a priest. Mesoamerican records, like later Maya inscriptions, rarely name victims, their anonymity serving the narrative of divine order. Yet their stories echo in oral tales, whispers of endurance under the gods' gaze. The ritual's rarity reserved for ambiguous crimes made it a potent symbol, reinforcing faith in cosmic balance. Victims clinging to prayers for Quetzalcoatl or memories of a family hearth showed resilience, their spirits defying the rope's grip. Ritual bindings, legacy influenced later Mesoamerican practices, from Aztec sacrifices to Maya penance rites, where physical ordeal met spiritual redemption. In modern times, it prompts reflection on justice and sacrifice. Teotihuacan, with its vibrant murals and sacred pyramids, balanced order with cruelty, its rituals a shield against chaos. The victim's silent strength enduring confinement with whispered hopes speaks to humanity's core. As the plaza empties, the ropes stilled. Consider, what does ritual binding reveal about the interplay of faith and punishment? And how do we judge a society that bound its own to appease the gods?